So, Aaron, you are 2 minutes early. Congratulations, you get an extra 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you.
So, the kind of idea of this is to look at pitching, so how to make your project sound appealing and to lots of people. So that might be funders or programmers or just general public. So there is a very strict time on this because it's very short time we have together. So you'll get 2 minutes to pitch your project. So you've got the sheet. So it's kind of looking at doing that pitch, which is, if you can, linking all the things together so we get a flavour of everything. Oh, hi. So in that 2 minutes, linking all of those boxes together, so you're really selling that project. Then we'll have 2 minutes where I'll give you some kind of initial feedback on that. Then we'll have 2 minutes where you'll get to kind of ask some questions and we'll get to flesh it out. And then we'll get 1 minute to wrap up. And then hopefully that will all work time-wise. So, are you ready? I'm setting a timer. That's how time is.
Okay.
Okay. So are you ready?
Okay.
Aaron, ready, steady, go.
Okay, so hi guys. So today I'm here to pitch my little project for you today. So basically my target audience, I'd probably say my target audience are kind of like those organizers, like event organizers type of things that go like around the country, maybe like wedding planners or maybe birthday planners or club party planners, because like as a tribute artist I have to go mobile like probably around the country, and I really need to like get myself out there and really appeal to like those organizers. And I think the best way to do this is to not only create a website with some like information and background about myself, but what I tend to like see firstly whenever I go onto like a website, especially when I'm wanting to see what this person is like, I usually tend to watch their videos first because I find them more appealing, and it gives me a bit more of a flavor of what they can do and what they're all about. So I think the best thing to do is to create like a really high quality trailer video for like a website and maybe my YouTube channel or for a Facebook group page. And I think the best thing to put in that video is like maybe some clips of like live performances, and maybe try and get some like little interviews from like maybe the party organizers or maybe from the people who's come to watch me to say what they thought, and maybe give out maybe a little quote from them. And let's have a look. So let's see, project time scale and targets. So probably the time scale at the moment is that I'm gonna have to probably start small, because what I've realized in this pathway is that I need to.
Aaron, you are out of time.
Am I out of time?
Is real quick. So the reason why I do sort of 2 to 3 minutes is because often if you're talking to this is 2 minutes, so I need to time this. So when you are talking to programmers, they will often be doing lots and lots of jobs all at the same time. So what that means is that they're like picking up the phone to different people, doing emails, So often when they speak to you, they've only got 2 minutes. So you need to like grab their attention really quick, give them like the flavors of it, almost like a hook. So it's almost like your pitch, that 2 minutes, needs to be a word version of the trailer that you were talking about. So with what you've told me, in 2 minutes, I don't know what the project is. What is it you're trying to sell me? So you talked about your target audience. You talked about how you would get that target audience in, but I don't know what it is. Is it an art installation? Is it a theatre project? Is it what is it? So I suppose what is it is my question to you. In like, what have you written in that box in the middle?
What's that? Sorry.
What is it that you've written in that box in the middle of the page when it says sell your project in 7 words.
Oh, let's have a look. Sell my project in 7 words. I think, let's see if I can find it. I usually tend to like go for like probably like my catchphrases a little bit. I'm gonna thrill you with a Michael Jackson tribute artist type of thing.
And that's you, as in you're a Michael Jackson tribute artist, or it's about. I mean, okay. See, already I'm like, oh, I'm more interested in what you're telling me, because I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, is it for stage? 2 minutes. Oh, you got extra 2 minutes though, so I feel like you're all right. So I think starting by saying, okay, like you've got to go in with the really clear visual stuff. So, hi, my name's Aaron. Also, you referred to it as your little project. Nothing's ever little. If it was little, you wouldn't be doing it. Like, it might be small in scale, but it must have a lot of meaning, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. So, my name's Aaron. My project is a stage performance where I perform as a Michael Jackson tribute artist. It is, I don't know what it is. It might be fun. It might be a musical. It might be, is it a one-man show? Is it a cast of people? Is it developed already? Is it like massive light projections? Is it like a kind of like glamour, like a gig, like a Michael Jackson gig? Or is it a play about a Michael Jackson tribute act? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think pitching started, so like an elevator pitch. So if you imagine that you've got wherever the dream place is that you want to do this show, they're in a lift, and you see them in the lift, you get in the lift, and you've only got, say, 2 floors boop, boop, to sell your project. How are you going to get them really excited about what it is you're doing? So, have you got any, there's 2 minutes, right? So, have you got any questions about how you could improve your pitch, or how you could put one together? Or any of the boxes?
Probably, how would you like, if you did like an interview on like the telephone, what type of thing would you like really talk about?
So if I was talking to a programmer, do you mean? So if I'm trying to get someone to book it?
Yeah, something like that, or maybe like agencies or anybody on the phone.
So I think the first thing is that what's really difficult in the arts is that you've got to sell 2 things. So you've got to sell you, and you've got to sell your project. So you, with that box of like sell your project in 7 words, it's like, how can you make your project sound really tasty? Like, how can you make sure that you're using really key words, like it's I can't think of a word now, but like it's a big fun night out. It's a Michael Jackson tribute act. It's vivacious. It's there's a disco light show in the middle of it, or we get to eat breakfast. I don't know, whatever you're doing in your show. But also for you to sound like you know what you're talking about. So the language we use is really important. So it like I was saying, it's never a little project. It's always this project. Like your show that you're really passionate about it. Quite like quickly, which I know, which is really tough, which is why we're kind of doing this, to kind of get used to being able to do that. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Okay. So I think what will help you loads is if you stay in the room while everyone else is doing theirs, and then you get to kind of see, is that all right, Trey? If we like turn videos off, just so it's not like, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Cool. Thank you very much, Aaron. Well done.
Oh, no, thank
Right, Amy. Okay, it's weird. Like my setup will be different to everyone else's. This is Amy. Who's this? There's two other. That's fine. So, Amy, are you ready? So, you might not have heard the beginning bit. So,
I have done this with you before.
Good. So, here we go. Strict timings, Amy. What I want from you is I want you to sell your project. Okay. Now, it might be that you're only able to sell your project using that middle box, which is like the kind of key 7 words, and kind of embellish that a little bit in 2 minutes. It might be that in 2 minutes, you can get around every single box in that really smoothly. Don't know, we'll see. So that's for 2 minutes. Then we've got 2 minutes for me to give you some initial feedback and thoughts. Then we've got 2 minutes for you to ask any questions. And then we've got a minute to wrap up. Are you ready?
Yes.
Right. Okay, 2 minutes. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Amy.
Okay, so what I am offering to you is not just one show, but a series of 3 shows in one night. So over the last 3 years, I've created some shows all under the baseline of tips for people or other things, and they're all based on injustices in the world that me and my friend Mel, who's my partner in my company, think that are wrong with the world, and we think that other people also think that, and it's relatable and fun. It is a stand-up comedy-esque spoken word poetry, own songs, made up songs, a bit like I don't know what I'm saying now. It's for anybody that wants to listen. It's never too much. It's always quite light and fun. It's for people who just want to have a good time and enjoy themselves for a few hours. It is, I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now you've got 40 seconds.
So the first show is tips for people who don't work in service. The second show is tips for managing millennials. And the third show is tips for the wonderful women we are. So they all tap into different subject matters that me and Mel are really passionate about or have experienced ourselves.
Cool. How long are they all?
They're all about 20 minutes long, with the idea that they could be up to 40 minutes. But if you're doing all 3 in one night, then a 20-minute slot for each performance is quite a nice time.
Cool. So, I think I get sort of swept away with you talking about it. Like, you've got some good punchy words. I think, like, it's relatable. What it felt like is you were like, right, okay, I'm doing this, like Rocky theme tune, okay. And you started off and you were like, bam, 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 bam. And then you sort of doubted yourself and went, I don't really know. And then you were like, oh, I've got my time. Maybe. So I think, like, keep believing in what you're doing. I think you get the initial sense, I'm not timing myself. You get the initial sense of, like, what it is. And I think keep furthering that. So it's relatable, fun, it's spoken word, poetry, songs. It's for people who want to have a good time, have an enjoyable night out. I think building on that, like, thinking about the 5 senses. So, like, it's, so when you say it's a good time, it's spoken word poetry, like, is it small scale, like, where am I seeing it? So it's a studio theatre. It's like, give some examples of, like, if it was, so the songs, you're creating the songs, but, like, I want to get a sense of what the atmosphere is. Mm-hmm. So is it like a cross, like, it's a bit like a cross between Madonna's Holiday and I can't think of another song, and I don't even know why I thought of that one, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's this sense, so I can get a sense of like, oh right, so it's party time, or oh right, okay, so it's, I think linking the threads between the work as well. So like, why would they be together? So like, I get it that it's a showcase thing, but if I'm a programmer and I don't know your work, why do I want to see 3 things?
Yeah.
Either is it because they weave together and actually it's one thing, and it's about the kind of banner of it's tips for, and within that we look at service industry, managing millennials, and I can't remember what you said, the something women we are. So like, what is a thread between them all? And I think looking at who your audience is really important. So it's for anyone who wants to listen, is super vague and super like, oh, it is basically a cop-out version of saying it's for everyone, which it never is. So like, who is it for? So managing millennials, is it for millennials, or is it for my generation, or is it for older, like, or is it for like what demographic? Who exactly is it? Because there will always be people in the audience who are anyone. But who are you going to send those emails to? Who are you going to make sure the flyers are in front of their face? Who are those people? And listing those, I think, is important. Have you got any questions for me? I'm just going to see if there's one more thing. No, I think that's it. Have you got any questions for me?
I don't think so.
I mean, you've got time, so.
I don't have any questions. I don't know what to ask. I don't know what I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So have you filled in like all the boxes on the sheet?
I didn't see the box things. Was it in the email that Trey sent us? So I just looked at the times and nothing else, because I don't read emails properly, clearly. I just skim. So I just saw my time slot, but I didn't see the box thing.
So the box thing, I think you will have seen this before. It's just like, okay, well, why is it you? So a bit like what we were saying to Aaron, like, you've got to sell you. So like, why are you the person that I should listen to and put my money in my pocket to talk to me about tips or millennials or women or service industry? Like, why? Why is it you that's really great? And that might be about the fact that you've got a track record. So you were saying it's the things that me and Mel are, you know, it's based on injustice. That was good. That was a kind of thread. But like, what is the thing that makes you special? And that might be about saying, you know, we've had incredible feedback, and maybe reads off some of that. Or maybe it's about, you know, you and Mel have got a really good thing, like riffing with each other. And I think giving a sense of like, what is your company, who are you, is important as well. Because like the way you talk about it, I'm already like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm getting to trust you, but I also want to know, why is it you that I should buy into? It's a bit like Dragon's Den. Like, you're selling a product, but you're also selling yourself. So like, why should I trust you or the thing that you're selling me? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think looking at that thing should help you kind of start to develop. And I think 2 minutes, said to Aaron, the reason why I do 2 to 3 minutes is because if you're talking to a programmer, they're doing like a million jobs. So they're talking to a million people, they're juggling a load of balls. And so when they talk to you, that is a phone call in the middle of an email and in the middle of a conversation with someone in the office. So you might only get 2 minutes. That might be the only 2 minutes that you get to speak to that programmer. So you've got to absolutely like grab them and nail it in that time. Does that make sense? Yeah. So yeah, I think, but good. I mean, also good that it's like 20 minutes, it makes an hour. That's kind of like a good time frame for like a studio show. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's all right. I think stay around, and then you'll hear everyone else's. Then I think it becomes like cool. Okay. Amy done. Tasnim?
So, sorry, Sarah. Tasnim just left a message saying she got a bit scared. She didn't see the email, and so she's left.
Oh, Tasnim! You should never leave. It's gonna be fine. Oh, that's a real shame. Do you want to message her and or is there any way of getting in touch with her and saying, totally cool, you don't have to, you just got to talk about your project. It's totally fine. She can be last if she wants.
Yes, I will message her. So we also had Liz, but she also looks like she has gone. So next would be...
I'm still here, but I've got I lost my voice, so it's a little bit frail, but I can try to talk, or you could do the next person if you like. I don't mind.
Liz, if you're here, we can...
Yeah.
Wait, I've totally lost... Where's my book? Right. Or is... Wait, Neil is... Liz, are you supposed to be at 12?
Oh, yes, I think I am.
Okay.
Yes, I don't mind waiting.
Well, I was just going to say, if Neil's not here, is he? So we have actually got 10 minutes, so we could totally do you now. Is that...
I don't mind.
Cool.
You just have to please bear with my voice.
It's totally fine.
Okay.
So, I don't know how much you heard before. So you're looking at pitching your project with 2 minutes. There's strict timings. I've got a timer. If you got the sheet with the boxes on, it's sort of about how much you can do in that 2 minutes. So it might be that you only really talk about the box in the middle and kind of elaborate on that, or it might be that you end up talking about all the things that are in the boxes. So like target audience, video idea, like trader ideas, how you're selling it, marketing, etc.
Okay, I didn't get the boxes either. I didn't get anything.
Okay, in that case, you're just excitingly going rogue.
I'm just gonna have to wing it.
Just wing it. I mean, let's be honest, most of the arts is just winging it. So great. So tell me about your project, Liz. You've got 2 minutes starting now.
The story I want to tell you is about a World War I war hero called George Arthur Roberts. He's a Trinidadian soldier. He fought in 2 major battles, Loo and Somme, and then he went on to become the most decorated black firefighter in this country. I'm great friends with his great-granddaughter. She's been telling me the story ever since I can remember. I feel really passionate about making sure his story is told. He started off an underdog, had to face racism, settling in a strange, unknown land. It's for people who want to know the lost stories of World War I. It's for anybody who loves war history or history, for BAME communities. It's never really been told before, and it's an incredible story, his bravery. He was known as the coconut bomber because when bombs were thrown from the Germans to the British, he would grab them and fling them back. So he put himself at great risk, and he just had the most extraordinary sense of duty. As soon as he heard the call for war, come, the motherland needs you, he dropped everything and he found his passage on a ship to England, didn't know what it was like, wasn't dressed properly, nearly froze to death on the ship coming over. And he just had this sense that he wanted to make a difference in the world. He wanted to help people. And as I mentioned, it didn't stop after the First World War. He just had this excess of energy and wanted to do something. And when the Second World War came along, he decided to be a firefighter. And there are articles about him standing up and saying, we need to make a proper fire service. And he was one of the people that really helped to make the fire service what it is today.
Okay. So, okay, Liz, is that okay to call you Liz?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. So, brilliant. I'm totally, I'm in it. You've given me loads of, really good, like carrots to go, okay. I think so. I'm just going to time myself as well. So I think what stage is it for? So looking at how you can weave into that story of like, you know, it is for studio theatres, or it is for this type of audience demographic. So I know you talked about like anyone who's interested in World War One or lost or history or lost stories, but and that's great. But I think adding into that who the demographic is. So, like for example, would it be what age is it appropriate for? So, like when we're talking about war stories, often there's a demographic of schools that could come and see it. So, is it age appropriate for primary school children? Is it age appropriate for secondary school children, or young people, university? Like, what kind of age limit is on it?
Well, there's a little bit of scandal with his relationship with women, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Mention, you know, he married a girl back in Trinidad, and then he also married an English girl. So I don't know.
I think when I'm saying age appropriate, I think that comes when you start to build the work, but I think you'll get a sense of it. I think don't be afraid just because there's like a little bit of scandal. Don't be afraid of thinking, oh, well, that's not appropriate for, you know, primary school children, because actually, I mean, they live in society and in the world, and they absorb an awful lot, and they are smart, intelligent human beings. You know, if there's like a lot of violence or kind of a lot of sexual language or you know, sex on stage, obviously not appropriate. So I think it's about building, when you're starting to make the work, really thinking about, okay, well, who would we want to see this work?
Well, I would say then there's no violence, there's no sexual content, there's no foul language. So potentially it could be, I hadn't really thought about for so young at primary, but because it's quite factual, but there's also a little bit of romance. There's also the difficulties he faced, and he always sort of had a sort of he's one of those the glass is half full types, and if he's got sour lemons, he'd make it into lemonade. So
that is a really nice. So all those sort of phrasings, like, you know, like if he has sour lemons, he's making them into lemonade. I think giving that sense of like, we get a sense of his character, his rhythm, his, you know, that is all beautiful, and the way you speak about him is really beautiful. I think the practical things of like, what stage is it for? What demographic is it for? Is it a one person piece? Is it storytelling? Like, is it you telling the story? Is it an actor telling the story? Is it cast telling the story? I think adding those details in will help someone go, oh, right, I now not can only see him, but I can see the show as well. So that's important. I think I'm just going to go through my list of things. So that's really key. All of that, like, I got a real sense of him right from the off. This is his name. This is who he is. This is where he's from. He's the most decorated black soldier. I think that is really important. And I think telling those stories, particularly in war stories, telling those story, we hear a lot about kind of white soldiers and white stories, and actually we never get to really see those other stories of soldiers who were of colour, and I think that's really, really important. And so I kind of feel like on that, yes, make the show. It kind of looks at racism. That's also really important that we're looking at that. And moving, so migration as well. That's, you know, really important that we're sharing those stories too. I think my initial thoughts were, and those kind of tidbits of story, so like, he's known as the coconut bomber because he's throwing bombs back. I was like, what? Who is this guy? Like, why have we not heard of him? Why is he not like the man we've heard of most? I think I'd make some really, so the thing that like tied it up for me, so my question is always like, why now? Like, why do we need to hear this story now? And I think you've got a few reasons for that. One is that we never hear kind of stories of people at war who were people of colour, people who had migrated to fight for Britain, in terms of being Trinidadian,
Yes.
and then also that lovely way you put what he was about was to make a difference and to help people. And I think at this moment in time, like, we're living through a pandemic, that is something that we can all relate to and all need a little bit more of, and we all need that kind of that care and that kindness, and so that kind of runs through. I think initial thoughts would be like, go out and make some partnerships. So places like the Imperial War Museum in Salford, they would be all over this. The fire service, like maybe contacting an area of the fire service to ask if they want to, they can support the project.
He's got 2 blue plaques.
Amazing.
You know,
Where are they?
New Cross Fire Station and at his home in Camberwell. I think it's Camberwell or Peckham. Yes, it's one of those 2. I mean, not many people get 2 plaques, and he's got one at his workplace and also one at his home. I mean, he really was a bit of an overachiever. He also helped with soldiers returning from war and making sure that they got proper pensions and proper care. So he helped set up lots of things.
Sorry, Liz, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but there's
No
literally no time
problem.
now. So what I would do is New Cross, Camberwell, Peckham, I would contact those people. I would see what the nearest theatre was, and I would talk to them about maybe being like working with them to create the work, because it's their local kind of hero, so they would want to be involved in that. And I'd also, if you think about, you know, I know that primary schools have been doing quite a lot over the last sort of few years about World War One. So maybe speaking to schools about how it might, you know, fire into the curriculum, and if it does, then looking at actually how could you maybe work with the school to kind of develop that to make sure it's a-okay for them. That is all our time. Like you did brilliantly. I love that you were like, I didn't even get the sheet, but you're like, oh, here we go, nailing everything. Brilliant.
Thank you.
What I would do is I'd stick around, because often when you hear other people talk about their projects, you're like, oh, you'll be asking yourself questions about their project, which then you can see how I'm thinking about yours. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. You are more than welcome. I want to see it. Let me know when it's on.
I will.
Fab. Neil. Oh, you need your audio.
There we are.
Hi. Yes, Neil, right, so, hi, welcome.
Hello.
Don't be scared, apparently people are scared. You have, so there's very strict timings for this. Did you get the sheet?
Indeed.
Okay, so, Neil, with the sheet, it might be that you're pitching your project, so you're selling it to me. So it might be that in that you only really explore the middle box, which is about just the project itself, and you flourish that, you know, you start with your 7 words and then you keep building on it. Or it might be that in 2 minutes you can manage to get through every box quite fluidly. That's quite difficult, so don't worry if you can't. There's 2 minutes for you to pitch your project. And that is because often you only get 2 minutes to pitch your project. Then there's 2 minutes for me to kind of like ask questions and give you some feedback. Then hopefully there's 2 minutes for you to ask questions, and then a minute to wrap up. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Right, okay, let's do it. 3, Neil, what is your project? In 3, 2, 1, go.
So this is a project. So this is a project that I did when I was doing my masters at Chester University. It was part of my major practical. No, it was part of my. I think it was still it's like my major practical project, where it was a play that was based on subjects of autism. It basically features a young lad who goes to university who studies philosophy. He does, but unfortunately, I mean, well, not unfortunately, but he has autism. He does, and so he goes to university. He attends his first little seminar, but then his tutor, he starts to receive questions, like set questions, and then he starts to struggle. He's like, oh, I can't do this. These questions are not for me. What can I do? But then his tutor's like, right, okay, how about instead of providing you with your question, we'll provide you with a set question, one that you want to do yourself. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, that's perfect. So it's basically a play that's all about finding yourself and try and look at the meaning of life and what life is all about, and just to enjoy it as best you can. And so in terms of I'll go through all the boxes. My unique selling points, why me, is to demonstrate my script writing skills to others, because I've never created a script before, so this is a bit of a first for me. My project unique selling point is to influence others about the attributes and also to about university life and overcoming the obstacles, and also as well maybe discuss elements of mind, the charity as well, because that's who I worked with and to help for my project. The target audience is teenagers aged 14 and above. The project's timescale was approximately around 40 minutes to 1 hour when I did it at uni, and in 7 words: informative, engaging, helping people understand more about autism and love of friendship. And in terms of, if I had to do a little trailer, maybe suggest like little camera shots of me in various parts of the stage, and maybe tiny clips of me moving around the space. There we go. So that's it.
Neil, I'm not even joking. That was bang on time.
Wow.
You've got like an internal clock of 2 minutes. You're just like, boo. Okay. So, well done, 2 minutes. You got pretty much around the boxes as well. So what I'd start with is, I know you had 2 minutes and you nailed it, but I think rather than spending time talking about that it was part of your masters and it was your major practical and all of that, like, that's going to make no difference to an audience watching it. So I'd not talk about that. You can say, you know, this project started in development whilst I was doing my masters. That's okay, but I think don't worry about the details of it. Really, just talk about the story a lot more, and give us a flavour of it. I think talking about when you go through the story, so it's about a young lad with autism, and he goes to university to study. His tutor sets him questions. He struggles. I didn't know whether that is the whole story arc, or is that it felt like that could be a you don't have to answer it, but the sense of like, but what's the greater picture? So what's, and you talked about it a bit better later on. So I think it's almost like minimizing that bit and expanding the latter bit. So like, it's about a young man with autism who's at university and is facing barriers within education.
Right.
That's kind of like, we get it. It's set in a university. Okay, fine. But what am I getting out of it? And that's more of the stuff that you gave after that, which was about, you know, this production is about ultimately finding yourself, overcoming barriers, and the meaning of life is like such a grand claim. Like, if I come, are you going to teach me the meaning of life? I don't think you are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. I like you a lot, Neil, but I just don't think that that's true. So I think giving that sense of like, it's about the meaning of life, but like, what do you mean when you say that? So it's better to articulate it's about this. Like, it's about finding connections and overcoming barriers and finding yourself and feeling comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
That feels more achievable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yes. That's right.
Okay. I love that you like rattled through things. You were like, why me? This, that, and the other. So I think in terms of why you, there is definitely better reasons than it's just about exploring my script writing. Because if I don't know you, I don't want to give you time on my stage with trusting you with my audiences if your sole purpose of this work is just to test out your script writing skills because you've never done it before. There's better than that.
That's it. Yeah. Well, in fairness, I'll be honest. I think there was a time actually when I was trying to fill in that box, and I did start to stumble across it because I was just thinking, why me? Why me? Why me? I mean, I'm just thinking like, I'm just thinking like, I don't know, like, is it maybe like of all students, why me or something, or is it like why not? Like, what makes me what makes my project stand out. So I just got a bit stuck with it, I think.
It's a bit. So the question is, if the play existed, and we both made a version of it, why would your version be better than mine? Like, why are you better suited to make this work than I am? So my initial thoughts of that would be, like, I have members of my family, people I know who have autism. So my why me but might be because I'm collaborating with those people to make this work who are autistic because I'm not. Or so why you? Is it because you have done lots of research, because you understand that community? But like, why are you going to make this the best version of this story than anyone else? Why should me, as an audience or as a programmer or whoever, trust that you are going to tell this story well? And often I think...
Sorry. I was going to say, I think the reason being could be is that, like, my version would be maybe much more effective, I would say, is because that in terms of my inspiration of where I got the material from, because the original material was from, it's from A Curious Incident, which is all about autism in terms of the protagonist who is autistic, and in terms of like when he tries to process information, where he does various things, that's how he does it. And also is that it was sort of merged with my own experience as well, not in terms of maybe like autism, because I don't know whether I'm autistic or not, but in terms of how I process information, how I used to sort of trying to get things to my head, and what I used to enjoy as well, especially my own things. For instance, like in the play, it explores a lot of Doctor Who, for instance, really. So that's why I thought used to sort of like implement my own versions of Doctor Who, for instance, really.
Okay. So already you've told me things that I don't know. So like, it's a bit, so one of your selling points might be a really kind of easy snippet way of doing something like this is about say, okay, it's a bit like Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime meets Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And already I'm like, well, I know both of those references, so I'm in. Tell me more. Why? And so that as a kind of like your trailer ideas might be like, that's the kind of vibe, that's a really quick and easy way. If this meets this is a really easy way of people to get a hold of what it looks like and what it feels like. I'm really aware that we've run out of time now, so just that it's informative, engaging, friendship, all of those things are really beautiful. Basically expand on the good stuff. That's it.
Good stuff.
Stick around, because I think it's good to hear what other people say, and you'll question their projects, and then you'll realise why I'm asking you the questions. So, all right, brilliant. Hey,
yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Neil. Well done.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Right, Hannah.
So she's not here at the minute, Sarah. I've just sent her a message. So she may be on her way, and I've just given Nadia a prompt as well to see if she can come a little bit earlier in case she doesn't show up. But at the minute, we're waiting.
All right. So shall we all use that time then? Because we've got it. So does anyone want to ask any questions, or just generally, or does anyone feel like they've maybe explored the box a bit more, or some advice? The time is yours, people.
Liz has got her hand up.
Yes, Liz.
Would it be possible to know a little bit about those boxes, as I haven't got that.
Liz, if you look on the Eventbrite email that you were sent, it was attached to that, so you might find it on that email.
Okay.
I'll send it to you after.
Thank you.
I can totally talk you through them. I think it might probably help everyone. So the reason why these boxes are good is because it really focuses your mind on like specific things. So I always start with the box in the middle, which is sell your project in 7 words, so either individual sort of buzzwords, like I say, like Michael Jackson, it's like maybe it might be like pizzazz, or I don't know, whatever the things are, or it might be a sentence. And so the reason why I would do it, can you sell it in 7 words is because often when it's your project, you're like really passionate about it and you're working your heart out to make it as brilliant as it is in your mind. Often we focus on telling it in a really elaborate way, but we often don't have that time. So whether it be with programmers, audiences, on flyers, for example, you've got to be able to sell your project really quickly. So it's good to be able to like condense it into 7 words so that then you can expand on it. Then there's a bit of why you, which I was talking to Neil a bit more about. So what are your unique selling points? Like, why should I trust, as an audience member or a programmer, why should I trust that you are going to make this better than someone else? Because given the example of Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, I read that book a long time ago. So my nephew's autistic. We read it with him. So that book has lived with us for a really long time. And then they made the stage show, and my immediate response to that was, oh God, it's going to be terrible. They're gonna ruin it. They're gonna make it all that glitzy and glamour. It's just going to be awful. But we went to see it, and it was amazing. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, thank you. But the reason why I was like, oh no, they're going to make it awful, is because I didn't know why you. Like, there was nothing, I didn't get a sense of like, well, why should this be trusted with this guy to like make it into a stage show? So I think that's sort of along that lines. The project USP, so the project's unique selling points. I think project unique selling points, I mean, depending on which way you're going about it, Michael Jackson, few things happening in that world, lots of talk not about his music. So I don't know what your piece entails, but like in terms of it, why now? So I always say, like, why now? Like, why are you making this work now and not 5 years ago, or not 5 years in the future? I think so it might be that why now is because actually, God, we're living in a pandemic and we need to let off some steam, or we need to assess, actually, can we divide the art from the artist? Like, if that's part of your work. So that might feature like, why now? Because that's a really big question that we're all asking ourselves, I think, at the moment, as more and more of that information comes out. In terms of autism and mental health, that's becoming more of a like big kind of conversation, and people are being more open about that, and that's really important, but there's still a lot of stigma around that. And then in terms of like particularly stories of I think stories of war, I would say, like, we've got stories of war, but the unique selling point of your story is that actually this is an untold story of war. And that's kind of the unique selling point of it, is that actually this is a really important story to tell because of XYZ. So then you look at your target audience. So Liz, like we were saying, like, would it be appropriate for schools? And if it's not, that's fine. You just don't put schools on it. But looking at ages, demographics, so like, is it for the middle classes? Is it for the working classes? Is it for neurodiverse people? Is it for people who don't go to the theatre? Is it for people who just want to have a banging night out? So rather than going to, I don't know, if like, so even if we think about Manchester City Centre, so I'm thinking more about Michael Jackson here, like, sort of, is it gig theatre? So is it more of a, like, you're coming to a gig and it's a party atmosphere? And if you were to like think of the Manchester City Centre and like the division of that space, how specific can you be? So like, it's generalization, but is your Michael Jackson show for people who go to Deansgate Locks, or is it for people who go to the Northern Quarter? And that reference point may not mean anything to you, but essentially, like, is it for people who go to Deansgate Locks who are like, high heels, I'm having a banging night out, let's dance to some club tunes? Or is it for people in the Northern Quarter who are like hipsters, beards, like, yeah, cool, we've got loads of disposable income kind of vibe? So think it literally as specific as you can get, because the specifics will help you think about, okay, well, how do we market it? Because actually, if your target audience is Deansgate Locks, where you advertise it and how you advertise it is going to be very different to where and how you advertise it for your Northern Quarter lot. Does that help? Anyway, Hannah? Cool. Is it Hannah? Is it Hannah? No, not Hannah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it is Madison. Madison has just arrived early for us, so this is Madison.
Madison, great. Just got the wrong bit of paper in front of me, that's why. Hi, Madison. Have you got your audio on?
Oh, yeah. Hello. Hi. Sorry.
Great, totally fine. So, Madison, this is how it works. It's your go now. I know that's a bit early.
No, that's fine.
Great. That's great. So the sort of format of it is that you're going to have 2 minutes to pitch your project. And when I say pitch your project, that's basically like sell it to me. If your project was a mug, why am I buying it?
Okay.
Okay. Did you get this form, this sheet?
Yeah, I filled it out.
Brilliant.
So I don't know whether like I just say what's on this or yeah.
So, if you filled it out, that's great.
Okay.
So the bit in the centre that's like sell your project in 7 words.
Yeah.
2 minutes is really quick. So it might be that you start with those 7 words and then you start to expand on it. So you start to give more and more detailed kind of carrots of information like, I'm getting excited about it. How can you get me to be excited about it? It might be that in 2 minutes you smash that box and you manage to link together all the other boxes. That's quite difficult, so don't give yourself like the pressure of that if you don't think it can be done. That's fine. So are you ready to sell me a mug / show?
Oh.
So you've got 2 minutes. I'm putting a timer on. Madison, sell me your project in 3, 2, 1, go.
So this is a sitcom with a French twist. So it's called Le Madison, okay? And you can get to have a one-to-one experience in a French restaurant, but it's in podcast form. So you don't even have to watch it. You can just listen while you're drinking a cup of tea, having a bonbon, whatever, right? Or you're even your best French dish, like garlic or something, right? So the people who would listen to my podcast are the ages like students to like people who are 40 to 45 years old who just like French culture. You would get a photo of the cast, a pin logo, a menu of all the characters' favourite dishes, so then you can make their favourite dishes at home. Depending on how much you would pay to the scale, you would get a French magazine and access to the podcast and an actual live sit-in with the cast, so then you can watch them and how it works to build that podcast out. So, yeah, the Madison.
Yeah, the Madison.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Le Madison.
Le Madison.
You've got 40 seconds, Le Madison, to tell me a little bit more about the kind of story, or what does it actually contain? What is it about?
Okay, so this is about Dee, a girl who wants to go into the fashion industry but has to get a part-time job because she's at university and she wants to travel to Paris. So she gets this part-time job at a French restaurant in Manchester, which is kind of not really French, but it is. And it's about a bunch of characters having fun, trying to keep this restaurant open, and a lot of stuff goes wrong, but it ends up being right at the end. So there we go.
That's your time.
Hey.
Sorry, I'm just finishing my sentence.
All right.
Okay. So, I'm going to put my timer on. So, your feedback. First of all, you've got a great vibe. I'm already like, I'm in. What is it?
Yeah.
Like the way you talk about it, it sounds fun. So the kind of your pitch is always about selling your projects and selling yourself. And so for example, if your project is really serious, the tone in which and the rhythm in which you tell what it is about is really important, because from hearing that rhythm and that tone, I get a sense of like, oh, okay, this is, whereas yours, correct me if I'm wrong, is like, it's got this like bum, 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 bum energy about it. So you're almost like embodying the spirit of your project when you're telling it, which is great. So, banging start. It's a sitcom with a French twist. I'm already like, it's a sitcom got a French twist. Brilliant. It's a 1-to-1 in a French restaurant. So immediately I was like, oh, it's a theatre production where I get to go and have food with you performing, and we're in a French restaurant. And then you were like, it's a podcast. So I was like, oh, I don't know how a podcast is 1-to-1. So
that was basically referring to the trailer video. I could have said that in a different way, but that was like the trailer video was like, you would have a 1-to-1 experience with like the characters, but you wouldn't see their face. It would just be their body. So then it's like telling you it's going to be like a podcast. You won't be able to see them. Like,
okay, that's like, that's a good set. So, you know, our trailer, it's a visual thing. I think talking about like what, I think if you can, I'll go to that in a minute. Great. That's fine. Video. I just wanted to go on to a French restaurant. That's what it was. So it's a podcast. The way that you kind of phrase that and keeping in with that theme of like, so it's a podcast, so you can listen to it in your bath eating bonbons. That sense of like, or that French link, and that kind of like just keeping that comedy value or garlic, like that comedy kind of boop, 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 rhythm to it, and also that French link is absolutely banging. I found it a bit strange that it's for students or 40 to 45-year-olds. That's a bit weird. That's not me. I'm neither of those, and I'm excited by it, so I don't know why that is. So I think
like the age range in between, like that whole age range is like the audience that I'm kind of targeting towards.
So in that case, it's 18 to 45-year-olds.
Right.
Okay. Cool. People who dig French culture, people who dig comedy. I think if you can, comedy is a really like broad thing, and podcasting is becoming more and more kind of, you know, apparent. So because there is like a saturation of podcasts, particularly now because people are just consuming things in lockdown really quickly, I think if you can think of describing what sort of comedy it is would be really useful. So like, is it farcical? Is it sarcastic? Is it, what sort of comedy is it like? If you can liken it to two things, like, so I can get a sense of like, is it like Mighty Boosh? Is it like Monty Python? Is it like, you know, what sort of comedy is it? Because if it's a sort of comedy that I'm not into, I know it's not for me, and I don't, or I think I'll give that a risk. Like that seems, it might be good. So I think the kind of interactive element of it is useful. You talked about a pay scale of things, and with that you get stuff. I love the idea of getting like a menu of the characters' favourite French dishes that you can cook. It's like weird and brilliant. Like, it's genius, because I can guarantee you I wouldn't make it, but I'd really enjoy the fact that I've got it.
Yeah.
So I think though that sort of like that pay scale and people getting gifts and interactive things on top of just a podcast is brilliant. But ultimately I had to ask you, but what is it about? So like, you did a really great job of selling it because I wanted it, but I also didn't know what it was about. So I think figuring out what is a really quick way of selling that storyline. So like, it's Dee, she wants to get into fashion, she wants a part-time job, she wants to go to uni, blah, blah, blah. It's a French restaurant. Like, is it more, it made me think of and this might be totally like wrong, but it made me think of like Chekhov, which is like not the thing. But like I'm not a fan of Chekhov. But the one thing that I found was that I like everyone just wants to get to Moscow. Like, oh geez. So that sense of like, I think that sense of like, is it about Manchester? Is it about the French restaurant? Or with the sort of guise of like, we love Manchester, we love being here, but we only realise that because we want to get out. So we like want to get to Moscow. Do you know what I mean? Like, we want to get to this university. The university is like the glamorous thing, but actually what we realise is that it's mint right here.
Right.
So is it really Manchester based, or is it not? Like, it doesn't have to be. I'm just asking a question. It made me think of like, it's almost Chekhov but better, and the play goes wrong but better. Like, both of those things I'm not really into, so I want a better version of them. So like, I think, yeah, that sense of like, loads of stuff goes wrong, it's all right in the end though.
Yeah.
So you've got, I'm totally off piece now. Is it about a minute? We've got about a minute, I think. Is there anything you want to ask or anything that might help in that?
I think because I have been trying to write lists. Like, this is actually an idea that I'm currently writing during lockdown. I think like, how do you get in like a rhythm or like a mindset where you just like, you know exactly what it's about? Because like, I'm still in that stage where I know what it's about, but I can't really explain it or put it on paper, if that makes sense. Like,
have you started writing like dialogue? Or
I've started writing like the character descriptions and like a bit of dialogue, but not like as much as I want to.
I would figure out what is your story, and whether that is just figuring out one episode, or whether that's like, okay, well, it's the six podcast, there's like 6 episodes, write a treatment for each one. So like, what is the overall story arc of what happens? And that will start off really basic, and it might just be, you know, this happens, then that needs to happen around that point, and then these 2 characters have this happen, and so you're really just looking at the basic arc, and then once you've got that, you can start to flesh that out more. So like, okay, well, we know actually I'm going to change that, or I'm going to add, flesh it out. Then once you've got that, then you can start to pick out individual episodes and go, okay, well, actually I'm going to flesh that out. And it might be that you just write a little bit of dialogue in that bit, a little bit of dialogue. Depends how your mind works.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the power of lockdown. Like, this is a really tough time to be productive, and so don't be hard on yourself if you're like, I really want to finish this in lockdown because I've got this opportunity. Like, that doesn't necessarily make the best work. So go for loads of walks and do loads of thinking. Never underestimate the power of a nap, and I think just give yourself time and space, and I would say don't hone in on the real specifics until you've got an overarching like story.
Yeah.
Yes, man. Yeah. I'm glad to see a lot of work after this, Trey, because I've liked everyone's project so far, so I'm in.
Thank you.
So
Sarah, those are that's everybody for today. So we can just relax and maybe ask you some questions, if that's okay.
Yeah. Go for it. Ask away.
So why doesn't everybody, you could unmute yourselves if you like, so that you're able to easily ask Sarah any further questions.
There's always that weird time, and it's like, okay, it's question time. And everyone goes, I probably have got a question, but I'm not sure what it is yet. I just need a minute. And then it goes, oh, no one's got any questions. Bye. Like, just, we've got time. If you've got some, you've got some. If you haven't, you haven't. It's fine.
Yeah, you always wait for that first one to question.
Yeah. Who's going to be first? Because I don't want it to be me. It was also decided to pick on. Oh no, I've lost my mouse. How do you lose a mouse? Oh, it's right in front.
While people are thinking of a question, I wondered if I can just ask So because this is part of Excel 2020, we're keeping a record of the workshops that are run. So I wondered if everybody was okay with us keeping a record of this workshop with Sarah and putting it up on the YouTube channel. Is everybody okay with that? I'm realizing that you've just pitched some really exciting ideas. They will be
Someone's
noted.
stealing it now, Trey. Someone's going to steal it now. See?
Someone's like, La Madison.
My name. No.
Bonbons.
Or someone's like, a war story with Michael Jackson, French bonbons, and
I've got a question.
yes.
How can you prove to potential investors that you are backable?
Good question. I think if I'm honest, a huge part of it is the gift of the gab, and I think it's the gift of the gab, believing in yourself, but also having a provable track record, which is very hard if this is the first thing that you're doing that people will give money to. I think ultimately it's about trust and relationships. Well, trust within a relationship. So like, if you think about your money, so if this was a pitching session today with all of you, would you, any of you, put your hand in your pocket and give someone else some money that you will never see again? So you're giving someone money not for a ticket to see the show, but for them to make the thing, and you'll never see that money again. That's sort of what we're asking of people. I know it's not quite that, but I think it's about, which is why your pitching is always, or talking to people about your project is always selling the project and selling you. Because I might think the project is brilliant, but if I don't feel like I have a connection with you, or I don't understand why you're doing it, or I don't trust that you're either going to do a great job or that you're not just going to run off and buy loads of shoes with the money, then like, why should I invest? I think people who want to invest in the arts, whether that be grants, foundations, Arts Council, private sponsors, corporate sponsorship, all of those kind of funding streams, if you like, are all based on relationships. So like when I talk about the Arts Council, I always say you have to build up a relationship with them. You have to build up that trust. So not only do you have to be able to sell your project, but don't let your first application be for like £50,000, because they're going to be like, who are you? That's a lot of money. You know, whereas asking for like £5,000, it's still a lot of money, but actually it's much more achievable in them say, well, actually, I feel like I can trust you with that you're going to make something with that's good. I think having a track record in terms of hitting targets. So like if you say you're going to do something, do it. So our first lot of money was £500, and I still work in the same way in terms of like evaluating and informing funders about things now with like really big sums of money as I did with £500. Like they're all treated equally. So we've got funders who give us quite a substantial amount of money. We've still got funders who give us like £500, and they're all treated the same. Like they're all treated with respect and thanks and kind of part of the project. So it's not your project anymore, it's our project. And I think it's a bit like dating in that you've got to find a link, you've got to find a connection with someone. So if you are just in it for the money, then you're only going to get one pot, because people give money because they care about you and they want your project to go ahead. Is that helpful?
Very, very.
Yeah, okay. Also, I think just one other thing is that we're quite bad in the arts, and I think this is particularly if you're like working class, is that we start off thinking like when we get funding, when we get sponsorship or whatever it is, it's very much like the relationship it feels like a parent to a child. So like, I'm the child because I'm just doing my little project, I'm just doing my art, and you're the parent because you've got the big money and you're going to help me out. Whereas actually that dynamic isn't true, because the art doesn't exist. Like, the art can't reach as many people without the money, but the money is there for the art. Like, people want to invest in things for communities and for art to exist. So the relationship really needs to be on par. Like, there is an exchange of things, money and art and money, like they're equal. So don't think of funders as being this like, oh, you're like the big guy and we're just the little guys. Actually, it's about saying you respect us enough to give us money, and we respect you enough to give you updates, invitations, like, you know, thank you notes, personalized things, like all of that as well. That was a really big rant about that. So, not a rant, but it was a really big like explanation of the question. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hello. So one of the things I've been trying to do is like in terms of trying to get my project out there. One of the things I've been trying to do is that I'm trying to suggest various methods of trying to get, basically trying to market my performance out there, just to try and get it out there. I was just wondering, so like from your perspective, what do you think are the most effective methods for marketing your performance or project?
So I think it all sort of comes under one banner of that marketing, but there's loads of different sort of versions of that. I think if you're talking about theatre, I think kind of old school method is just, I will print some flyers and some posters, people will come. It's like, people won't come because ultimately we're all poorer financially, particularly now. We're all time poor. And so why would I buy a ticket to your show rather than getting a posh meal deal? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. So
I need to see it multiple times. I need to sort of bump into it multiple times. So that might be from social media campaigns. It might be because your posters and your flyers are in all the places that I go to. So a bit like that Deansgate and Northern Quarter thing we talk about, like where are your flyers? Am I seeing them everywhere I go? Because actually that's I'm interested in those things. On social media, am I seeing it appear because there's lots of connections with things that I interact with on social media? Like, I need to see it a few times before I'm going to book a ticket. Is what I'm saying. Yeah. So there's like your print marketing, then you've got your kind of social networking marketing, then you've got your kind of press marketing. So writing a press release, sending it to people, writing, thinking about other areas. So press are like time poor and often on skeleton teams. So you need to write a press release that is so good that they can basically just copy and paste it. And if you want, I've got a handout that's basically like, this is how to make a really good press release. I'll send it to Trey, you can send it to everyone. So sending it so that people can literally just copy and paste it, because that's really all people can do. But also thinking about, well, what other traction could you get for the project? So for example, you talked about autism and mind and connecting with them. So like, actually, could you write an article or a blog about mental health for a mental health for like Mind's website? Could you, if there's like an autistic performer you're working with, like, could you get them to write a blog that could go on I can only think of like really local ones that I know, but like for an autism kind of specialist website.
Yeah.
How can you think a bit outside the box in how to reach people? Like, what are the main themes of your work? So for example, like music, autumn, Doctor Who, like what are the like all the links of things, and how can you like really make them pop and think about, okay, well, Doctor Who, sci-fi, Comic-Con, like those are things I'm thinking of. So like, okay, people who like Comic-Con, how can I reach people who dig Comic-Con? How can I get them excited about the thing? So that Comic-Con is like way far away from everything that you're talking about. But when you're thinking about who your target audience is, and also what does it look like, what are the things, you start to pick out these strands that will help you in your target audience. And then you've got the audience development, like the grassroots stuff. So that is, how are you going to tell people? So this is the difficult stuff. So if you want me to come, and I've seen it on social media, I've seen it in the bar or the cafe or wherever I like to go, I've seen it posted in a Comic-Con group, so I'm like, oh, all of these things, this is definitely for me, like I've seen it a lot. And then you send me a direct email, or you send a direct email to like a Mind group or an autism community group, and I'm part of that group, and that email gets forwarded to me and says, I don't know, we've got some free tickets, or, you know, we would love to chat with you after the show, or we would love to come in and talk to you before the show, or whatever it is. I'd be like, oh, you want me to come? I think it's about making people feel special and like they want to, you know, like you want me. So there's kind of loads of different levels of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good, actually, because I think in terms of like the ways in terms of like the methods and approaches that you said as well, there've been loads of other things that I've been thinking as well. Because say, for instance, in terms of like my performance, as it's based on children maybe age around the teen years, some people might like to use social media, or use like other social media like platforms like Instagram and stuff. And in terms of, say, if I wanted to get my performance out there and get people to say, hey guys, I'm just doing a show, would anyone like to purchase some tickets or book some tickets? Then go onto like an Eventbrite, they can really, and in that way maybe they can just, and that way it's sort of easy to access. They can just go like, so some children might be browsing through Facebook, might be going, yeah, there's that. Oh, there's a little link here for Eventbrite. Okay, let's see what that is. And it could be based on something that's based on this. And in terms of the description that I said as well, they had made attributes that people would enjoy seeing. Like they were saying, I enjoy seeing this, they enjoy seeing that, and I think, yeah, that seems much more my answer really. And I think as well, in terms of like maybe using, so it's all about trying to find ways that people would relate to, or people would use as well, or people would go to. Like I said, with Comic-Con, that's a really effective method, because I never would have really thought of that, because obviously like fans of Doctor Who would maybe, for instance, love to go to Comic-Con really, and other sorts of little conferences as well would be quite nice.
Yeah, like how are you going to find the people that you want to get? So also there's like the visual aspect. I think the assumption always needs to be that people aren't going to come. Yeah. Because you've got to work really hard for people, because I might see it a few times and be like, oh, that looks really interesting, but it isn't as easy as going, that looks really interesting, click. I need to go, that looks really interesting, that looks interesting enough for me to get my diary out, ask my partner if we're doing anything that night, check, oh, is it someone's birthday, check how much it is, check how much money I've got in my bank account, like I've got to check all those things before I book a ticket.
Yeah, that's it, I think. I'll be just a second. I'm gonna...
Right. So yeah, I think always assume people won't click on it. So what are all the things that you can do to put it in front of someone, but then also like visually tease them, or like audibly tease them into something. So making like theatre now is pretty standard to make like a video trailer. So what is going to visually draw people in? So like, I know people talked about, well, I would share clips of it happening. If those clips aren't exciting, if it's just you saying some stuff, walking around the stage, I don't care, because I've seen it before, or I don't know who you are. If it's an artist I know that them walking around the stage talking is going to be brilliant, because I've seen them do it before. If I don't know who you are, I don't know why that's any different. So what is it? So like, what is new? What is visually pleasing? So even as much as the rhythm, so like Madison, when I was saying about how you talk about it gives me the rhythm and the pace of the work. Your trailer needs to do that. So if you're making a show that's got a horror theme, it probably needs to look like a horror film for me to get it. Like if it's comedy French farce, it needs to look like a comedy French farce. Like what am I seeing? Like what are the reference points to it so that I can really get a visual about, oh, okay, this is what it's going to look and feel like. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to show any of what the actual show is. You just have to get a sense of it. Like it's about a feeling. It's kind of Most of the shows I go and watch have got trailers that don't really tell me anything about, well, they will tell me something about it, like I'll read the copy, but are exciting, and I get a sense of it, like, oh, this is going to be dark, or this is going to be comedy genius, comedy gold, like, or, I get a feeling of it, and it makes me want to read the copy. Because ultimately, people are being bombarded with things all the time. So what is going to make me keep scrolling and reading more? And then even further, check my diary, check my partner, check my friends, check my bank account, and then buy a ticket. What's going to make me go through all those steps? Yeah. Sounds really harsh, doesn't it? I can't be bothered booking a ticket. But I think it's a really harsh climate. And equally, like, even with podcasts, like if you were making a podcast, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I'd be like, that's banging. Loads of people are tuning to that. But right now, I feel like podcasts have become a bit like films. Like, if you're with friends, or TV series, if you're with friends and you're like, oh my God, have you seen such, oh my God, I can't believe you've not seen that. You should totally watch that. And you're like, yeah, I'll put it on my list. No one makes a list of like suggestions of things. Like, you just say it. People just say it, don't they? And some stuff I genuinely write down. But I can say a handful of those things I've actually bothered to watch. So I think of it a bit like that. Like, oh yeah, I'll put that podcast on my list. Like, unless I'm seeing something or hearing something or like captivated by it in like a couple of seconds, it's just going to go on a list, on my notes, on my phone, that I'll probably never look at again, and then I'll get an upgrade. That also sounds dead hard, but I think that's sort of, we're oversaturated, and I think you've got to stand out within that. Yeah. Trey, am I being too harsh? Okay, fine.
No, I think you're being really clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Liz wants to ask a question.
Yeah.
Hi, how important is it to get permissions? Like if you are, say, writing about a real person, or even in a podcast when you have people coming in to your show, how important is it about permission, release forms and things like that?
So I'd say really important. I don't know about people as in like what you were pitching as your project. I don't know about that. I don't know. I would say it's important because I would want them to know, or their family to know, that I was respecting their story. And also I'd want them to be on board. So like if the family can be advocates for the work, that's really positive. And that will not only help them spread the word and help connect people, but also that will help you make the work better. And it will also help people who have no connections think, oh yeah, but their family are on board, so I reckon it's probably pretty good. Like, it's got a bit of credential to it.
Do I need to have some sort of contract or some sort of permission?
I don't know about that in that. I don't know if it needs to, I genuinely don't know, because I've never experienced it. I would probably think you don't have to, but I think it would it would be wise to have a conversation with. So like if you were making it about I think it was my great granddad who was in the Boer War, like if you were making a piece about him, I would sort of feel like, oh, you don't know him, what's your connection, why are you making it like, oh, that's, and I never met him, I don't know him, but equally there's something about, I think there's something to be said for just saying your great grandfather is really interesting and I'm making this work, because I think I'd be more likely to be like, that's fascinating, I want to see it, that's great, thank you. I don't know, there's just a respect in that. I think in terms of permissions of like, so like now, for example, this is being recorded and we're all giving our consent and our permission, and I think that's really key, because we using anyone for anything, so whether it's something someone's created, so like we've had photographs and things that we've produced that people have wanted to use, and we've said no, because we want to know the context in which it's being used for. We want to know, like, if we're going to be credited, we want to know, like, there are lots of things that actually, so for example, I might not want my face, for example, to be anywhere near a certain thing, subject, whatever. And that's sort of my right to be able to say, I don't want that. Like, I haven't opted in for that, and that's not okay. Similarly, like with this, when this is important to get people's permission, because actually even more so now, because we're all showing a little bit of our house. Like, this is our personal environment. Is that okay? And actually, yeah, it's fine if we're saying yes, but someone might not feel okay with that. And I think whenever we're using anything of anyone's, whether it's something someone's created or themselves, so like a picture of them, their voice, their opinions, all of that, I think is really important that we do get permission. So we have like permission slips and people sign for those, but we're really specific about what that is. So for example, we worked with a photographer, we've worked with, for example, young people who have made a film, and we will say, okay, well, this permission is for these things. So we can use this film, for example, on our website, on our funders' website, on the council that have commissioned it, or whatever else. But outside of that, if someone says, oh, we love that film, can we put it into this film festival, or can we put it on this website? That's not on our permission slip. So we need to then go back to all of those participants, and this has happened actually with a project that we've done, where we went back to the participants and said, these people want to use you or your work in that way, is that okay? And they've said no, and then we've had to go back and say, we're sorry, we can't get permission for that. So yeah, important. Yeah. So I also felt like a long-winded answer, sorry.
No, thank you. That's really good.
Yeah. Anything else? There also doesn't have to be if everyone's like.
Sorry, just going back to that last subject, I was just wondering, like, somebody like, it wasn't, not Spielberg, he did this film about the Tuskegee soldiers, and I just wondered if he'd got permissions about that, or, if you're doing something about Michael Jackson, do you have to write to the estate or something to?
Oh, so, don't know.
Okay.
Don't know, but one thing that you do need permission for, so for example, in the case of Michael Jackson, and in the case of every piece of work, if there is music involved in the work, you need to contact PRS, because you need to pay for the permission to use that music. So I don't know about Michael Jackson, but I would imagine that's quite difficult to get. There's also different tiers of PRS. So PRS stands for something that I can't remember, but it's basically the music. It's music people. also the fact that this is being recorded is like, Sarah, you should know that. But PRS, it's really important that you pay for it, because essentially it's exactly like I was saying before, that we would want credit for the work we have made. It's only right that we are crediting and paying for the use of someone's art. And so there are different tiers to how we use that music in theatre. I'm not sure about podcasting. I imagine I don't know what the kind of cost and tiering is. You'd have to ring and ask. So, for example, if you are playing some music at the top of the show when the audience is coming in, that's kind of one set price. One set price. Every song and artist is different, but like that's kind of the cheapest kind of way of using music. Then you've got also, I hope PRS never watch this and go, oh, that's not how it works. So then you've got a kind of tier of, okay, well, it's in the show, so it's in the action. So the players started, the work has started, and now you have it as something in the production. Then there's like another level of if you are interacting with that music. So if it's in the show, but it's just on in the background of a scene, it will depend on what is happening in that scene, and also if you end up interacting with it. So, for example, if you're playing a song and you are dancing on stage to it, that is a different thing, because you're acknowledging the music more. So it's more actually embedded and crucial in the scene of the work. It also depends what's happening in the scene. So, for example, if you have a sex scene and you want music playing in it, there are some artists that will just say no. There is kind of a different level of what they will agree to. There is also certain artists that you will just never get. So there are some artists that just will not say yes. So a kind of renowned one is Madonna, the majority of the Beatles. I think you can get George Harrison solo, but everyone else in the Beatles, not a chance. So it's sort of mindful to think about how integral it is. I think particularly if you're looking at, well, this is a Michael Jackson thing, then I think finding out pretty early if you can use Michael Jackson music is pretty crucial. Unless it's about Michael Jackson and it doesn't have music in it, which I don't know. So yeah, I think thinking about that is pretty crucial. We came up against this because we had, I think it was Madonna actually, or it might have been the Beatles. That's why I know those two examples. In the script, we were like, right, okay, we'll just ring PRS, let them know. And they were like, oh no, you can't use them. They're just like notorious at saying no. It's like, oh, I'll just write them a personal letter and say, listen, this work is really important and we really want to use your music. And they were like, don't bother, man. It's never going to happen. So we're like, oh God, so we had to go back to the script. And then spent hours and hours listening to music that was like, okay, we need it to be this rhythm, this beat. It needs to be from this era. It needs to be like an artist that was cool at the time, or, you know, whatever that is. So yeah, if it's got any music in it, just give PRS a quick ring and be like, hey, are they sort of all right with or not? Yeah.
Thank you.
It's all right. Yeah. Madison's left. She's like, I've got to write that story arc. I'm off.
Sorry, she did leave me a message. There's another event that starts at 12, so she's gone off to do that. She said, thank you very much.
Oh, it's fine. I was only joking, but like, yeah. I love the thought of like eating bonbons in the bath, listening to podcasts. Brilliant. Did it help listening to other people's as well?
It did, absolutely, yeah, it did.
Yeah, it is useful because I think when you hear when it's your work, it's obviously all in your brain, so it's hard to talk about it without either gushing about certain bits of it, and it's also like, oh, like my sister said, oh God, yeah, I haven't even told you about the story. Oh right, okay, you know, you forget those details because it's all in your mind and you're living with it all the time. So yeah, it does help when you're listening to other people and you go, you haven't even told us what it's about yet, and you're like a minute and a half in, you're like, oh god, I did that too, okay, right, okay. You know, it's a really difficult thing, and it's a definite, like, pitching as a thing is a definite skill, and I'm by no means saying that I've got it right. Like, we can all get better at that skill for sure, as you'll probably have noticed, because I've rambled quite a lot, so definitely got better though.
Definitely better. But yeah, there's one thing I was going to ask as well, actually, is that as I've been creating my own projects, one of the things I've always been interested in doing is, like, because I've always had lots of ambitions to basically just ask for copyrights, the permissions for plays, and just basically just do them either as my own, as a one-man production, or just with other people as well. And one thing I was going to ask is there anyone that I could speak to if I wanted to ask for the rights for specific plays or certain plays? And if so, do you know where I can find a template for a cover story letter that I can send off to the guys?
There is, but I don't know that information, I'm afraid. So we've only ever made work that is ours, that we've created. We've never done anything that is written by someone else or, you know, published by someone else. So there is definitely. Oh, there you go, Trey can answer this.
Oh, Trey.
Yeah, we have experience, obviously, because at University Campus Oldham, when we're trying to put on, sometimes we are trying to put on plays. So basically, you need to ask for the performance rights, so whoever holds the rights of that play or that story. And sometimes it's quite difficult to find out who that person is or who you might need to ask. But if nowadays, because we've got Google, if you kind of search around, you could probably get the information of who holds the particular rights for that piece. And then it's just a case of contacting them. So there might be an agent that you've got a contact for, or it might be the estate, or it might be the person directly. And you just ask. So you need to set out clearly what it is that you want. So if you're doing a performance, you need to say when it's going to be, when you'll start rehearsing. You need to ask them before you start rehearsing. They don't like it if you ask after. So before you start rehearsing the piece, well ahead of time, can you have permission? And they'll say, yes, you can, and it costs this much. Or no, you can't. Somebody else is already doing that, and they've got exclusive rights for this year. So it's a bit hit and miss. You never know what it is they're going to say. And same with the music industry. Some estates are notorious for saying no, and other people are more generous to it. But I think I would just write a letter from yourself, just honestly stating what it is that you intend to do. Because each case they often look at differently. There isn't always a standard answer that they have. And they might charge you a different fee depending on how big your venue is or how many audience members you've got and that kind of thing. So give them as much detail as you can of what you're intending. But yeah, I wouldn't use a standard letter. I would just write it yourself.
That's reminding me as well, in PRS, depending on what you're doing with the music and depending on what artist it is and what's happening on stage, but also how many people are in the room. So you have to submit, well, we think, like, is it a studio tour or is it an arena tour? Because if you're doing an arena tour, then they're charging you loads. If it's a studio tour, it's obviously a smaller amount. So, you know, if there's 70 people in the audience or there's 20, or, you know, how many performances are you doing, where in the country, like all of that, you have to put in your application. Yeah, and also, like, on the rights thing of, like, who owns things is quite difficult as well. So, like, the Beatles music is owned by Michael Jackson's estate. So you'd think that it would be in the ownership of, like, I don't know, the family or the, you know, their estate or whatever. But it was. I'm sure. Wait, that might not be right, but I feel like years and years ago, Michael Jackson just bought the back catalogue of Beatles songs. Don't trust me on that. Google it. Is it? Is it true? It happened. So yeah, there could be, like, really weird things. So you're like, oh, that's not what I expected. Like, that artist's back catalogue of work is owned by someone else. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because I think
Imagine having that much money that you can buy the back catalogue of the Beatles' work. Like, that's insane. Anyway,
I mean, all that would be, yeah. I'm like, hey, I need to.
I love that Aaron's like, he did.
I know.
Like,
I'm honest. Like earlier on, I was when he mentioned Michael Jackson's face, his face just lit him. I'm like, oh bless him. His face just lit him. I was loving it. It's like, yeah, love it. Oh, and I guess, yeah, because I'm not sure though, because aside from plays and stuff, I mean, I know, like, say that if you wanted to do Shakespeare, for instance, really, like, maybe from like an extract to like a whole play or something. I imagine you'd be able. I don't know, like if you wanted to do Shakespeare, for instance, would you be able to have the rights to do Shakespeare or not?
I think there's something around rights where if you've been dead for X amount of time, you can do it.
I think I was saying the true. Yeah, true. I was like, yeah. That's what I was thinking, because obviously Shakespeare, he's been there. Shakespeare has been the original writer for years, and obviously he died many years ago. So I think it's after a certain amount of time. So if I want to do Shakespeare for like maybe, say if I want to do a one man show of Hamlet, for instance, really, I could be able to do that.
I mean, I'm not giving you permission to do that.
I'm not saying that. I was just asking. Yeah, no.
I think there is I don't know if there's like a performer rights society. I feel like there must be, that you can just ring and say, I want to do this. Like, do I need to, or is that Trey? Is that not true? Is there not like a central, like PRS is central for music? Is there not? Maybe there's not. I don't know.
I don't think so. Not that I know of. Yeah, and my understanding would be the same, that after a certain amount of years, things no longer are under copyright or those kind of rules. But again, I'm not giving you permission. You'd have to check it out.
I need to check it out. Yeah, that's fair.
Also, just to flag, I have seen in Edinburgh a one-man version of a Shakespeare play. It was the most terrible thing I've ever seen. I'm not saying that you would do that version, but I definitely would have had big eyes if they'd have ever pitched that. It was very interesting. That performance I saw, I mean, you're talking decades ago, but I still wheel it out as one of the favourite things I've ever seen, by being the least favourite thing I've ever seen. So.
No, in fact, that's what I like to see. That's one of the things I like when see performances that turn out to be like, okay, because there's one time I went over to Huddersfield. I went to Lawrence Batley Theatre. I went to watch Notebook by Force Entertainment, and most people were like, "What is this? Is this a story like performance of two guys just reading from a book? What is this?" And I was like, "This is all right. This is fine." But yeah, even that sounded as boring as that. I know.
Right, when were we supposed to finish? Was it 1? Was it? I don't know when it. Or.
So we were supposed to finish at 12, but I think you kindly said you would probably go on to 12:30 to allow for questions. So you have more than done your share with us. So.
Oh no! Honestly, you're welcome. It's always lovely to spend time with you all.
And it's always a pleasure to see you, Sarah, as well.
Thanks. If anyone, Liz, I love the chat function. It's like secret messaging, but it's just not secret because everyone can see it. But thank you, like genuinely, thank you for your thank you. But also, if there's ever, we do a thing called Artist Brew Day. We've got one coming up on the 11th of June. It's written on my wall. 11th of June. We're going to be sending out a kind of doodle poll for that. Artist Brew Days, some of you know because you've been to one, is a time where we offer our time for free. You can book into a 45-minute slot where You can talk about literally anything. So it might be, okay, I want to practice my pitch. It might be, I want to talk about creative structure. It might be, I want to talk about fundraising or producing or marketing or any of those things. It might be all of those things. But yeah, we've got one on the 11th of June, and I'll send an email saying if anyone, it's free. That's probably the most important thing to say. It's free. So yeah, it'll be on Zoom as well, which is basically just this again. I might be wearing something different though. That might be exciting. I might wear the same thing just to be like, oh, anyway. Cool. That's it then.
Thank you very much, Sarah. You were brilliant. Thank you for all of your advice.
Totally welcome. I'll see you all soon.